Howdy guys, welcome to Rune Revolution. I'm Ethan Stahl. Today we're gonna mark the beginning of a first of the kind of mini-series. What it's on is Nordic mythology. The reason, well, there are a couple reasons. The first is that it's really relevant. If we're going to be doing rune casting as a lens to view the world and philosophy and that kind of thing, we have to understand what they're talking about first. Because at the end of the day, specific runes, specific rituals, names, dates, places, times of this mythology are all going to be very relevant if we're going to try to rune cast. So, I need you guys to understand what I'm talking about a little bit before we go and get started with the rune casting. The other reasons are that I actually find it really interesting how ancient cultures believed. Also, because the stories themselves fit with my love of storytelling. Thank you for mentioning those, Ethan. Oh wait, I didn't. So, today I'm going to read for you guys the Norse myth about creation. We'll go so far as to understand how the world and the main pantheon came to be, and maybe I'll go into different stories to elaborate later. So let's get into it. Before the dawn of time, and before the world was created, there was only a big, dark, vast emptiness called Ginnungagap. To the north of Ginnungagap, there is a place called Niflheim. Niflheim is a very dark and cold place, and consists of only ice, frost, and fog. To the south of Ginnungagap, there is a place called Muspelheim, and this is the land of fire. It is so hot there that it only consists of fire, lava, and smoke. This is the place that the fire giant Sutur will become the ruler and live, along with the other fire demons and fire giants. It is said that in Niflheim, at a place called Hvergelmir, all the cold rivers originate, and it is said to be the source of the elven rivers. Hvergelmir was the origin of all existence and the place where every living being will go back to. In Niflheim, there is also a place called Elivagar, which means ice waves. These are the rivers that existed in Niflheim at the beginning of creation. The streams floating out of Hvergelmir, the water from Elivagar, was flowing down the mountains to the plains of Ginnungagap, where it solidified into frost and ice, which gradually formed a very dense layer. That is the reason it is believed to be cold in the northern plains. From the south, where Muspelheim is, came lava and sparks into the great void Ginnungagap. And in the middle of Ginnungagap, the air from Niflheim and Muspelheim met, and the fire melted the ice and it began to drip. And these drips started to take the shape of a humanoid creature. It was a Jotun, also called a giant. This giant was Ymir, the first giant in Norse mythology. When Ymir fell asleep, he started to sweat, and the sweat under his arms grew two more giants, one male and one female. And one of his legs paired with the other to create a third, a son, Thrudgelmir, or Strength Yeller. These were the first in the family of frost giants known as Jotuns. They were breastfed by the cow giant Adhumla, who, like Ymir, was created from the melting ice when Muspelheim and Niflheim met. The giant cow Adhumla fed herself on a block of salty ice. And while she was licking on the ice block, something strange happened. On the first day, some human hair emerged from the block. On the second, a human head. And at last, on the third day, the rest of the body was created. The man who had grown out of the salty rock was Buri, the first of the gods. Buri was a giant, large and handsome. He would later have a son named Bor, and with his wife Bestla, they would have 3 sons, Odin, Vili, and Ve. Odin and his 2 brothers were bothered by the fact that the giants outnumbered the Aesir. The giants were constantly conceiving new versions of themselves, and the only solution that they could see was to kill Ymir. The 3 brothers waited until he was asleep before they assaulted him. A horrifying battle began, and by using all their strength, they managed to kill Ymir. The blood spouted out with furious force in every direction, and most of the giants drowned in a flood of blood. Only 2 giants survived, Bergelmir and his wife, and the couple fled and found a safe place in the land of mist and saved their lives. All future giants were descended from this couple. The world was created from the remains of the giant Ymir. The 3 brothers dragged Ymir's lifeless body towards the center of Ginnungagap, the place where they created the world. His blood became the ocean, the rivers, and the lakes. His flesh became the land. His bones, the mountains. His teeth, rocks. His hair became the grass and trees, and his eyelashes became Midgard. They threw the brain up into the air, and it became the clouds, and the skull became the sky. Ymir's skull would be the lid that covered the new world. The brothers grabbed some of the sparks shooting out from Muspelheim, which is the land of fire. They threw them up towards the inside of the skull. These sparks gleamed at night, and this is what we call the stars. On the plains of Idavol, they built Asgard, which would be the home of the gods. Very far away from Asgard, in a place called Jotunheim, was where the giants would be allowed to live. The dwarves came into existence while Odin and his brothers were in the process of creating a new world from the body parts of the giant Ymir. Worms kept crawling out of the rotted remains, and these worms became the dwarves. Because the 3 brothers, Odin, Vili, and Ve, were afraid that the sky would fall down, they told 4 of the dwarves to hold up the sky, and they were sent out in each direction of the world. The names of the 4 dwarves were Nordi, north, Vestri, for west, south, Sundri, and Is, or Austri. The rest of the dwarves made their homes in rocks and caves under the ground, which is called Svartalheim, the home of the dwarves. They became experts in craftsmanship, and they have created some of the most powerful magical weapons, like Mjolnir, Thor's hammer, but also beautiful jewelry. The Sun and the Moon. A man by the name Mundulfari, meaning the one moving according to particular times, from Midgard, had 2 children. They were so shiny and beautiful that he decided to call his son, Mani, Moon, and his daughter, Sol, or Sun. The gods were so furious by this arrogance that they took both of them and put them up in the sky. Sol would ride in a chariot that is pulled over the sky by 2 horses, Arvakur, which means early awake, and Alsavor, very quick. Under the chariot, there is a figure, Svalin. It holds a shield that protects the earth below from the flames. Mani is only pulled by 1 horse, named Aldsaver. Mani stole 2 children from Midgard to help him drive his chariot, and their names are Bil and Yuki. They are pursued by 2 wolves from a giant, Skoll, meaning treachery, and Hati, meaning hate. Each day, Hati would take a small bite out of the moon, but then the moon would get away and heal itself again. These 2 wolves will one day catch the sun and the moon, which happens at Ragnarok. However, there is also a story about a giant Norvi, which had a daughter, who had a daughter. She was called Not, or Night. The daughter Not had a son, Dagr, or Day. Both Not and Dagr are riding in chariots, which are pulled by horses. Not is pulled by her horse, Hrimfaxi, or Rime, spelled R-I-M-E, Mane. And behind her is Dagr, pulled by his horse, Skinfaxi, or Shining Mane. These are apparently also followed by the 2 wolves, Skoll and Hati, which makes this part a bit confusing, since there are multiple conflicting sagas about this part in the myth. That's actually kind of common among mythologies. The first 2 humans. One day, Odin and his 2 brothers Vili and Ve were walking on the beach. There they found 2 logs. One was from an ash tree, and the other was from an elm tree. Odin gave the logs spirit and life. Ve gave them movement, mind, and intelligence, and Vili gave them shape, speech, feelings, and the 5 senses. And the first 2 humans were born. The man was given the name Ask, and the woman was given the name Embla. The Aesir decided that the humans should live in the place called Midgard. And that's the end of the webpage. So, let's talk for a couple minutes, because I kind of had a thought. Several. So let's go back up to the top, and I'll kind of skim over some of this. First, it's hard to tell in a lot of these creation myths, the Greek, the Norse, the Egyptian, they all share elements, but this one in particular, I wish I had a better sense of scale for what was going on, because I'm confused about exactly what scale Niflheim and Muspelheim are at. I know about the concept of the 9 realms, but if they're insanely large and they birthed the giant whose flesh became the earth, then I'm a little confused about the size of scale, if that makes sense. Just another kind of a scale issue. Look at the picture on the screen right now. The picture is of Odin, Vili, and Ve killing Ymir. And either, in this artist's interpretation, they're all as big as the Earth, or Ymir just had an insane amount of blood. I'm not really sure exactly what happened here. I'd just like to understand what the Norse were talking about when they meant this. Because really, I'd absolutely love a chance to ask one of them about this, because the sense of scale, it just seems a little off. I'm not entirely sure what they believed. There's another picture up here on the screen now about them lifting Ymir's brains into the sky, and I'm not entirely sure if they understood the sense of scale either. I'm just a little confused. It might just be me. Maybe it makes sense to you guys. I always really like the concept of the dwarves. I think that's really cool. The race that can just kind of create everything, as I have a great love of making. The 2 different myths about the sun and the moon. Pretty interesting stuff. Now, the first two humans coming from trees gives me a couple questions about the chronology of this whole creation myth. Um, because I've also read a slightly different version of this interpretation where they were created from the trees, and then the gods built a fence around an already existing plane, like a piece of reality, and that became Midgard. Uh, I want to understand how they all viewed this, because maybe they had a concept of dimensions, like they all exist in the same place, kinda, but you have to know the right magic to walk between them. Or maybe they did think of them as entirely different physical realms. If any of you know more than me, which I wouldn't be that surprised, I started studying this fairly recently, have a better idea or concept of this, please comment down, and I'll get in touch with you, because I'm curious, because I know from the concept of weird and some of the stuff in the previous video that the Norse had a relatively advanced concept of psychology. So I'm wondering how advanced their ideas about this were. And look, I'm not saying their ideas about the way the world was created, but oftentimes, even how we do it today, you'll create a story to explain a much deeper concept, because it's easier for people to connect and relate to. So I'm just wondering what inspired this kind of stuff for them. Anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in. Like, comment, subscribe, whatever you feel I've earned with the value I've added. Look forward to more videos like this in the series. We'll go through it until we're just about caught up, and then it's time for the good stuff, the rune casting. Have a wonderful day. I will see you later.